Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Branding Banter, your promotional products podcast, where you can get all the nerd news you need to know about. My name is Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA.
And I'm Meg Gerber, Director of Sales over at Performa.
Sarah Goshkarian-Unruh, National Sales Manager at Stalls.
And we are joined today by a very special guest. We got Natalie O'Leary with us from BAMCO. How are you, Natalie?
I am doing well, thank you very much. How is everybody doing?
Doing all right.
Good, it's Friday.
It is Friday. The weather is warming up a little bit. I mean, we're still February, but we're getting there.
We were just talking about that pre-show. Where are you, Natalie? Where are you located?
I live in the Houston area in a suburb called the Woodlands. So,
yeah.
Fun Texas
my
weather.
parents live.
Oh, did they? Oh, yeah. How funny. Great area. My husband was born and raised here. And so when I moved to Houston post-college, we met and I came up here, with him and I was like, oh yeah, this is where I would love to be, have a family and everything else. It's great. But yeah, as far as the weather goes, it's Texas. So 3 weeks ago it snowed. Today it's 82. So.
Wow. Well, I mean, the snow part's not normal.
No, but we were happy. All 1.5 inches of it. We were just delighted.
Yeah, you guys were probably shut down for about 3 or 4 days with that 1.5 inches, right?
Totally. Kids were out of school for 3 days. It was glorious.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got an exciting one for you guys today. I mean, we want to talk about sort of dive a little bit deeper into a topic that we've discussed before about specs write checks or specs get checks, however you want to say it. But we all know that term. It's one that Headwear certainly lives by. But there's more pieces to that puzzle than just specs get checks, and that's really what we want to discuss. The part that's missing. What else is there that really makes that clock tick? But before we launch into that, Natalie, why don't you just give us like a quick introduction of yourself, maybe how long you've been in the industry, and maybe how you got started in the industry.
Of course, yeah. So again, I'm Natalie O'Leary. I'm the Director of Business Development at BAMCO. So I'm a salesperson, and I have been in the industry for going on 13 years. And I kind of got in the industry by meeting a person at the Houston Rodeo. So shout out Houston Rodeo. It's coming up. It's a huge deal. And then from there, came into the industry and have been here since. I love it. It's the best.
I've been to the Houston Rodeo, and that is awesome. It's
awesome. A thing. It is a thing. If you haven't been, would encourage you to come. We have a really good lineup this year. Post Malone and some other great ones. So they kind of hit on all different genres, and it's just a good time.
It is. It's huge too. It's not something that you can even imagine.
No.
You're like,
and if you want to see promo in the wild, the rodeo is crazy. It's a whole thing. So yeah, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Well, Jeff, I think we should kick this off because I know last time we did this, we had Jenna Quaranta on, and this was back in her days of Knox Apparel, and it was a different time, right? Like it wasn't BC, it wasn't before COVID, but it was during COVID when it was the world of sending out kits and samples and kind of just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what stuck. So I would love to hear your take on it first, and and then we'll kind of maybe we all give our opinions on this. I think because I think we all kind of attack it from a different angle. And I know Sarah, you had said you and Jeff, I can't remember if this was like pre-call now or on the call, but we want to talk about your experience and what you guys used to do as distributors and how it's evolved. Am I right? Is that where we're going with this today?
Yeah. So basically, we were discussing earlier in the week about how things have changed, not only post-COVID, but I mean our industry is getting younger. I don't know if you guys have noticed that at all, but I'm certainly seeing a lot more younger people getting involved in the industry and sort of coming around, sticking around, whether it's multi-generational stuff or but either way, the industry I feel like is getting a little bit younger, which I mean isn't hard to do, but still. It's something that it doesn't just affect us, as
I can't wait
distributors and suppliers, but end users are also getting younger as well, and so things have changed. The way people go to market has changed, and I'm just wondering how much of the old school mentality is still there versus what's being done differently now versus maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
I think
So
one of the things for me that I have seen is even if you rewind to whenever this conversation had happened before, like pre-COVID, if you will, social media has just exploded. And so, Natalie, I know you do a ton of social media. You do fun like TikToks or Reels or whatever videos that get a lot of engagement. And so, whenever I think about specs, I don't think that it is anymore just getting a logo and putting on a hat and sending it out, right? To then get the response from a customer. I think there's a lot more to it. So I'm curious how you guys are utilizing specs, Natalie.
Sure. I think I sort of go back to the same mentality, having been in the industry for 13 years. Like I've always adopted that same mentality of specs can equal check. So that for me is the same. But I feel like the way that you can execute it now has just changed. And for me, it certainly getting on social media back right post COVID, sort of January 2021 is when I started to have my own Instagram account and like really started to lean into showcasing content of behind the curtain what we do here in the industry. And I definitely kind of use that as a way to almost digitally do the version of specs writing checks. So it's showcasing what we do online that has been really beneficial to me because it's reaching a broader audience than even a physical spec sample can. So I definitely think that it's super important and it continues to work, but in that way more so than even just the physical. But you want both, ideally.
I think that's a different way of going to market as well, but depending on the size of your company, because I feel like as a 97% small business industry, a lot of folks do more so, I guess, focus on their local businesses to work with. And then, maybe expand a little bit from there. But there are a lot of larger distributors in our industry that go nationwide or even international. So certainly how you would go to market with specs is different, for those two columns as well,
And not only that, you're using specs on two different avenues, right? You're doing it for lead gen, sometimes maybe prospecting, or you're using it to upsell and cross sell to your current customer base. So do we want to kind of separate those two and like lean into maybe prospecting first and what your outlook is on like, hey, let's get some specs when we're prospecting? So I hear that a lot, like, oh, ask your suppliers for specs, ask them for specs. So there's a right way to do it, and there's also a way to waste money doing it. So, I think that, and I like what you're doing, Natalie, as well, is that you're incorporating social media and kind of telling a story instead of product selling, because I think in the age of social media and digital media, it's just sell, 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 sell. And it's like, oh my gosh. I was on Facebook the other day and I'm like just scrolling, and I'm sure there's a way out of this land that I've ended up in on Facebook. I just don't know how, but everything's an ad now. I know there's a way. Someone showed me, but I ended up back there.
Yeah.
So and I mean, that's get off of it.
That for me has kind of been trial and error. I mean, if you scroll back to my original Instagram post, like it was like product, like, hi, this is a pin and this is a koozie, but like no one cared. And that goes back to like before I had my own like brand on Instagram, I used to post stuff. I see stuff all the time where it's like Facebook, like 10 years ago, I was trying, even in like that was like really archaic back then, but no one cared though. But the thing that I have seen, and I'm not saying it doesn't, like just showing product can't be beneficial, but what I've seen in my own personal experiences, people want to know more. They want to, hear your story. They want to get to know you. They don't care about your coffee mug. So I just really have leaned into making it more about the storytelling and entertaining and, providing value, I hope, and insight to what we can do, but just more than just product showcasing, because it falls flat in my experience.
I agree. It doesn't tell the story, right? People don't buy what you sell, they buy why you sell it. So if you can tell a story and you're like, oh my, maybe telling a story while you're drinking the coffee mug, right? That's that repetition that you're getting to see that promotional product with the branding on it over and over again. So I love that. I love it, incorporating it and having that little Easter egg. So Jeff, I know you have a pretty, Sarah, you had a
I was
question.
going to ask because I don't know that we got, so whenever you guys, so is there a difference of what you do from a prospecting standpoint versus what you do from a current client customer that you're looking to grow and expand business within?
I would say mine's fairly similar. I definitely try to utilize customer branded merchandise and specs to thank current customers or as a touch point if it's been a while, or just if we've done a nice project or things of that nature. And then I also kind of do that for prospecting. Like I have one in the works as we speak for a customer that I've been trying to get a meeting with to talk about being a part of their RFP. I've sent a holiday gift. I've sent a joy box, which is something that we curate here at BAMCO quarterly for our customers with our branding, a little different than a spec, I guess. But doing something really personalized, actually, with their initials and branding, and so I kind of use it for both. It just depends on the situation, I guess, as to what the item actually is or the concept.
All right, Natalie. So you just got a spec sample from your favorite supplier for one of your top clients. Now what? What do you do with it?
Well, if they're local, I would love to schedule a meeting to go and drop it off face to face and maybe bring in some lunch or Tiff Treats or whatever, what have you. If not, I'll definitely get it in their hands as soon as possible and follow up with a call and let them know that I sent it and hope they enjoy it, and take it from there.
And how are you using that tool? So, like, are you using it as a way to get in the door with a client? Or are you using it as a way to start a conversation? Are you using it as like preparation for an event that is coming up because it's cyclical? How are you using those tools?
All of the above. I think if you have the resources to do it, or the partnerships with your suppliers to get it in their hands, do it for every reason that you possibly can. I mean, the reality is seeing, even in the digital age and like the virtuals that we can create and look so fresh and unique and cool and AI generated, like nothing is better than physically getting it in your hands and being able to think about what it could look like in the hands of your clients or your employees with your brand, or however it ends up coming out. But I think definitely to put something tangible in someone's hand and have the experience as well of like unpackaging it and gifting it to someone is going to help you get to the next phase, whatever that might be in that situation.
So Meg and Sarah, it sounds like what she's not doing is sending out the spec sample and then just never following up on it.
Yeah.
That sounds like what she's not doing.
There's one thing I know we haven't really talked about, and I am a big stickler on it, and so I'm happy to hear your guys' opinions on it. Is it a time suck or is it a numbers game, right? So my whole theory on this, really, it's one of my biggest triggers and my biggest pet peeves is when people just throw shit at the wall to see what sticks, right? Let me just do as many spec samples as I possibly can and just see how many I can send out all at one time, right? In my eyes, in my head, in the prospecting game, you're going right from the blind date setup to trying to marry them on the first date. There is no wooing. There is no dating. It's like, you need this and this is why you need it. And you don't even know why they need it because you don't even know anything about their company, right? So I think the biggest aspect.
Do you know somebody that's doing that? That's doing like,
yeah,
let's say 15 or 20 different specs on items for the same client and giving them to them at the same time?
I see people saying, ask your vendors for specs, than just going and ordering specs with their customer's logo on it.
But do you know for a fact that they're taking them all in at the same time? Because personally, I think you should throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks to some degree, but not in the way that you're mentioning it, for sure. Like, I definitely agree with you there. It's not something that you should do 30 different items on and then take them all into your client at the same time. It is something, however, that you should do 20 or 30 different items on and then go see them once a month, like Natalie had mentioned. Stay in front of your clients. That was one of the things that I always struggled with the most, was how do I stay relevant and in front of my clients without wasting their time? And a drip feed spec sample program with different items is the absolute perfect way to do that, because you're not wasting their time. It's Christmas every time you come, so they're getting a present or a gift. and you're staying relevant, and you're able to engage them on a more frequent basis, which is going to land you more opportunities.
So that sounds like you're talking about like current customers, right? Not the prospecting side from a customer basis, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it on both sides, but certainly current clients.
So I think that can be almost a waste of money and kind of annoying. Like, I might not want you showing up at my house or at my place of business every month with a new product, right? Like, what value are you adding? How do you know that I need that product, right? So, like, what research did you do to know my common pain points or the challenges that I'm facing as a business? Or, I think that's the biggest step that is missed. Like, you don't just need to throw out like 30 different spec samples. You could go really deep and find what their company's challenges are. Maybe they're going through a rebrand. Maybe they're a brewery that keeps their beer at a specific temperature, right? Like, that's their jam, but like you don't know that on their logo. So maybe you do some hacks with the temperature of that logo. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just little nuances that make your outreach more meaningful, right? More personal. It's just doing the research ahead of time, because I feel like if you're not adding value, then it's just annoying. It's just another promotional product that's going in the graveyard. Sorry, go ahead.
That was my question for Natalie. Is like, how do you guys curate the spec that you are going to utilize for that customer? Is it research that you do ahead of time? Like, how do you decide what product it is that you're going to ask for from the supplier?
I would say typically, if there's something that I'm working on and something comes up in terms of like an idea or a product or some that I like, then I'll think like, who would this make sense for? Who would appreciate this? And then I might go ahead and get something for them individually. So yeah, I think I agree, Meg, for sure, about doing your research. And I also think even going beyond just researching the company pain points or likes or interests or direction, but the actual individual person. And nowadays there's so much out there that you can find out. I mean, not to sound like a creeper, but you can go on LinkedIn and see one of their images, maybe they put up that they have a dog or that they have kids, and like really think about how to also tailor your spec samples that you're selecting for each prospect or current customer. That's something that maybe their family would enjoy, or that would really mean more to them as a person.
Yeah, I think leaning into their ego is a great way to do it. Just as an example, when I was on the pitch a couple weeks ago as the judge, Kate Plummer was one of the contestants, and they came out and they were pitching a koozie, right? Koozies don't reinvent the wheel. You really gotta like sell this, and how do you make it a little different? So they actually added the NFC tracking code, which I thought was phenomenal. But when she handed us the samples, I looked at it. So she did a deep dive into my Instagram, found an old picture of me demonstrating a jujitsu move. Totally leaned into the ego here and printed that on the koozie. Like, how could I not turn my chair around for that?
Totally.
My husband.
Oh, I love it.
So it's me doing.
They use that tactic. I don't know if anybody else here loves Shark Tank, but I love Shark Tank. Yeah. And like they do that when they pitch to the judges and they find like the shark version for Kevin or like whatever. And so that was a great idea.
Yeah, so I thought it was really cool. I mean, it's just a regular koozie, right? It has the tracking code on it, but then I was like, first off, I invented that move, so it was great. I was like, yep, turn it around. I love it. But yeah, so I think like feeding into that, finding that personal nuance that makes your outreach just more personal will go so much further. And yes, it's an extra step, but also you're not just wasting money, and you're not just wasting their time either. I think when you're prospecting or even just trying to re-engage with your customers, adding value is more important than just trying to touch them. I've been on both sides of it now. And
Meg, I'm not suggesting that you sell bottle openers to Mothers Against Drunk Driving, but what I am suggesting is that you do put product in front of your clients and use it as a relationship tool. You use it to open the door and to consistently stay in front of your clients, because you're expecting to sell every single spec sample that you do, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to understand that that's not going to happen. You have to use the spec sample as a relationship tool to stay in front of your clients, to then further engage them on what they like about that product or what they don't like about that product, or what other product may work for their next upcoming event. And so it's just two different ways of thinking about it. I don't necessarily think that you're wasting anybody's money if you use the tool that's given to you. Um, and I certainly don't think that you're adding to the brand fill either, because people, they love the smell of their own brand. Okay, so if you put a product in front of them with their logo on it, they're going to use it, whether they buy it as a company or not. You know, that's a whole nother story. But if you use the tool and they use the product, then it's a win-win.
I think as a supplier, if I put back on my hat when I had a tangible product that I was selling, not just transfers, that going to different meetings and having then a distributor say, sure, like here's 15 of my logos and I want specs for all of these. That was, for me, that was like the biggest pain point, right? Because then I was like, there was no research. Like, you have no idea, like, is this really going to be something that your customers are going to use? And really, like, do you really have 15 top customers, or is that every customer that you're doing business with? And so that's where I think I struggled during the
So
whole
that's
spectrum.
kind of going into what Jeff is saying. Like, he just wants the specs done, so he has like talking points and touch points. And I guess I see it's a numbers game at that point, right? You're like,
Yes.
okay, if I touch them once a month, but then how many are you doing that to? And is it? I guess you just have to assess it, right? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Are you getting it out of? But make sure that, I think if you're using it as a conversation point and using it to upsell and cross sell, and that should be the goal of doing these, not just to sell that one product, but to just make sure that the customer knows that, like, hey, I have done the research. I'm making this outreach more personal because I understand your challenges and pain points. I'm not trying to sell this pen that also is a hand sanitizer and a breath spray. Like, no, I mean, I'm just, I saw that you guys like breath spray, whatever. I'm really bad at improv. All my franchise owners know that.
Well, I mean, I think
It's a
that's
great product to invent. We're going to have a pen that's also hand sanitizer and breath spray.
And
no, because
everyone
somebody's
is
going to spray the
free.
hand sanitizer in their mouth, and it's not going to turn out good.
And I'm always like, Mary in HR, and then I'll tell another story of like Mary in HR, like a different Mary though. I'm so bad at
I think ultimately what you're saying is right, Meg, and it's going to, at the end of the day, it's going to show that you care. You took time to think of this person, and it builds trust, which is ultimately going to drive orders. So it's certainly worth your while. I think if you can put a plan together with it, which is hard to stop and do, but just have some like projection of like the next quarter or the next 2 quarters, like what you're going to do, and put it out there, and that way you can budget and really think about what that looks like. Then it's going to get you where you want to go, I think, ultimately.
No, I agree, Natalie. And when you're having those conversations with your customer and you're uncovering like, hey, what do your next 2-3 events look like? You're already getting this in advance. You're already growing that relationship. So if you have their events in, that's the time when you're like, okay, here's the event. You're doing the research right now, right? You're knowing the event, the time frame, who the target audience is. Now you have that information. You go back to Jeff at Headwear and say, hey, listen, we're doing a golf outing. Can you put some specs together? Here's the demographic, but the research is done then. And then we're asking for the specs. It's all about uncovering these little, black swans or nuances. That's all it is. And it's, growing. But again, if the way to do that is Jeff's way, then that's okay too. I don't think there's really a wrong way to do it. I think it's just, hey, what works for you? Incorporate into your business. I'm a little bit like, I need to be more organized and more like, where's it going? Why is it going there? What's the goal? What's the, has to be a plan, but that's just because I'm a little, OCD.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The more information that you give your supplier partner, the better. Absolutely. And I'm not suggesting that you don't do the research. My point is that it doesn't have to be perfect, because you're not going to sell that product all the time. It's got to be used as a tool.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the more information that you give your supplier partner is key, because a good supplier partner is going to follow up with you then as to the success of that particular spec that got put together. And then as well, to find out if there are other items that come out that are similar that your customer then would also benefit from another spec from, then that's another reach out from the supplier partner. So I agree. I think it's important to make sure that the communication is there all the way through.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So I've got an important question.
Yeah.
It's Super Bowl weekend. So are we Eagles or Chiefs?
Just kill me.
He's obviously a Steelers fan.
I know. But you got to pick one in this case. Or are you just going to do all prop bets?
All right, you know what? Here was my theory before. I'm going to go Kansas City only because I want people to ask for more money to break up that team. That's what I want.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with the Eagles. I think Saquon Barkley is an amazing asset to that team, and if it weren't for him, they wouldn't even be sniffing the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl. But I'm going to go Chiefs just so that we can get that team broken up.
All right.
All right.
I go Eagles,
Meg?
obviously, because it's my backyard. It's by default. I don't have any other lane.
Natalie?
I don't have any affiliation to either, but my 8-year-old son, he's 8 today, he wants to go for the Chiefs because thank you. He wants to go for the Chiefs because he likes, I think his name is Xavier Worthing, and he went to the University of Texas, and my son's a big Longhorn fan. So
Aww, I love
Very
that.
cool.
Okay.
He's a good wide receiver.
yeah.
Sarah, who
So
do you got?
normally I would say go Chiefs. And because Patrick Mahomes is from Tech, my husband graduated from Tech, my daughter graduated from Tech, so we're got a little Red Raiders here.
Yeah.
But I have to say, like, my son is going for the Eagles, and so I'm kind of cheering for the Eagles as well. Like, I like Jalen Hurts, but he needs to follow through this Sunday. So, are there going to be any fun merch that gets seen this year from Bamco? I know we had Dunkin' Donuts last year.
We had a what? I'm sorry.
Dunkin' Donuts, right?
Yeah, the Dunkings.
There's a delay. Dunkings.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yes. I think there's always cool things cooking with Dunkin'. But yeah, no, I think so. Our marketing team is doing an amazing job, figuring out what different types of case studies we can put out there and customer stories, and they keep it pretty updated. So it's fascinating. I love seeing what my different rep friends are working on. But then, we got some really cool merch. I felt like we celebrated our 25th anniversary while we were in Vegas, and we got some custom Crocs, which, by the way, I did not ever own a pair of Crocs until these Crocs, and they're amazing. I would highly recommend getting some custom marine layer piece, just some really cool things. So yes, our innovation team and creative team is top notch, and it's always fun to see what they come up with.
It's awesome.
Very cool. Well, either way, it'll be a fun game to watch, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Well, I think we've pretty much summed things up with this topic. And until next time, we'll be seeing you guys.
All right, thanks.